This week on the Munchkin Minute, how much is too much when it comes to Kickstarter? Hi everyone, it's Steven Schleicher, and this week everybody's here. Brad's here, Brian's here, Rob's here, and I got a question for you guys that kind of has been bothering me. There was a Kickstarter that I backed recently, and it sounds like a fun game. It's a board game, and they've got some stretch goals, and they meet the stretch goals. Stretch goals, whatever, that's not a big deal. But they also have expansions to the game already available too, like whole other game expansions that you can add to your pledge level to get these expansions.
Yeah.
And I kind of have a problem with that because, and I think we've talked before, with most of these big Kickstarter games, these probably aren't going to show up in a game store anywhere. And so the chances of me walking into my friendly local gaming store and saying, hey, I need the expansion for this XYZ game, and being able to get it might be kind of slim, or maybe non-existent. And so I'm wondering, when it comes to these kind of Kickstarter projects, do you go all in with the expansions and hope that the game system is really good? Or do you wait and hope that you can find these expansions somewhere else later down the road? What do you guys think? It's really kind of hard to decide.
Yeah, I mean, it does generally just depend on the product on the game, and fight your finances, because that's usually my biggest limiting factor. But I mean, if they're kickstarting expansions, and it's in addition to the base game,
yeah, they got the base game, but also as part of the main Kickstarter. It's not a separate Kickstarter. It's just like, hey, we've got this Boogeyman Monster expansion that has 25 other characters and all this other stuff, and then for another $90 you can get these, and if you want to get a bunch of monsters, we've got this expansion pack.
Yeah, I mean, if they're actually funding expansions, not just add-ons, which we're just going to ship you more stuff, I would say those are probably more likely to show up within your local game store.
Really? Okay.
Maybe not the expansions themselves, just because of the nature of expansions. No one, store owners don't know what ones will be in demand or not. But you could probably order them.
Well, with the exception of like the Ghostbusters and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
That's true.
I have not seen a lot of these games show up in a game store. And that's kind of a problem too. And I'll just say, Cthulhu Wars. I mean, if I go to a big gaming store in Kansas City and walk in, they're not going to have Cthulhu Wars on the shelf.
I think
I saw one on the shelf in
Hutchinson?
One of the Hutch or McPherson. I don't remember which one, but there was one on the shelf there.
Just one, because I went to one that's a big store in Kansas City. They didn't have any of it.
Yeah,
McPherson has a game store?
I think so.
I just am no longer.
It was like a year and a half ago.
I have one, so
but you're not going to see the expansions. You're not going to find the Cthulhu War expansions in an FLGS.
Right.
No way.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's largely its nature as a luxury game. I guess they marketed it as.
Well, see, that's my problem. Those are the only things I kickstart anymore.
Or the luxury games.
Yeah. So I got in on God's War because I liked it and backed at the base game level, and then I added on the special little box of buildings, and I'll probably add on the expansion that beefs it up to 8 players, because why not? But I'll do that as a late pledge or as a pledge add-on, because I don't feel comfortable writing a check for $1 bajillion.
Right. Well, that's kind of where this conundrum comes from, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I guess that kind of concerns me, is because do you run the risk of losing out on future gameplay because you didn't do it at the time of the Kickstarter?
Right.
Or do you run the risk of spending all this money for something and then finally getting the game and going, oh, this is not as fun as it looked like on the Kickstarter or what I'd seen from other people?
So
here's
your solution: is you just don't pop open the expansion until you're really
and then
sure.
eBay it.
And then eBay it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think, Rob? Any other thoughts on this?
I think a lot of it's like a measurement of the system. Like if it's a known publisher, they're more likely to actually put it out in stores.
Right.
If they have a playable copy, like as part of the initial backing, something that you can at least see this is the general idea, and see if it's something that you're going to want to invest more in.
Even just a print and play demo.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to go hip deep for the Kingdom Death Monster thing.
Dang.
Well, I regret missing it the first time, and then that because it's a known quantity. I know it's an excellent game. I know I'm going to love it because I know what the game is now. And
are you looking for some players?
Factors.
Oh yeah. We'll take. I was counting on you, Brian. Actually,
one of the things, one of the ones that I kickstarted in the spring, that had an expansion with it. This was a second standalone game that could play with an original expansion for the first one.
Right.
But basically, the expansion was the add-on for the expansion was the exact retail price of the expansion.
Oh,
so it was like, well, it's not really worth doing the Kickstarter for. I'll just pick it up when it shows up. So it's just kind of a measurement of the actual cost of the expansion. Like if it's going to be cheaper on the Kickstarter, it's more worth it. If it's not, then...
I'm also just surprised that so many of these are like, here's our base game, and then here's 2 expansion games if you would like to add those on. It's like, wow, I mean... why not set those up as separate Kickstarters, or why not offer those at a later date or something? It just, I don't know. It seems odd, and it has me in a conundrum because, again, if we're talking about these luxury games, am I going to spend $100 on this game, or am I going to spend $700 on this game? Part
of the problem is that the Kickstarter setup is not consumer driven, right? It's producer driven,
right?
So they're when they have to say, well, how and when are we going to offer these expansions? And this might be the only time anything ever gets offered ever.
I know, right?
And if they don't put them out now, it may never happen ever.
Yeah.
And so from the producer's standpoint, there's no downside to putting them out on the Kickstarter, right?
Yeah.
From the consumer standpoint, there are about 9 kinds of downsides.
That's where my conundrum comes in. So listeners, we need your feedback on this. Send an email to podcast@majorspoilers.com with your answer, or if you have comments over at majorspoilers.com, there is a comment section where you can share your thoughts there. That wraps it up for this installment of Munchkin Land. Thank you so much, everyone, for downloading and listening and sharing this episode with a friend. Hey, if you'd like to support this show and everything that we do at Major Spoilers, head over to patreon.com/Major Spoilers. Not only will your small monthly contribution help us out and allow us to do great shows like Munchkin Land, you can also get some cool things in exchange, depending on your funding level. So head over to patreon.com/Major Spoilers today, and thank you for your support. And until next time, remember, it's not cheating if you don't get caught.
This podcast is copyright 2016 by Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC.
This podcast is part of the Frog Pants Studios Network. For more information about this and other shows, visit frogpants.com. Audio program so good, it's like you're there.